if you've been around American politics or even just the religious scene in the country in general, you've probably heard a lot about the Southern Baptist Convention. Recently, the Southern Baptist Convention's policy arm, the Ethics and Religious Liberty Committee, had a resignation at the top. Brent Leverwood, who's been the president for a while, has resigned in the wake of mounting controversies due to his stances on immigration, gun rights, and a whole host of other issues that Southern Baptists care about. But if you're not a Southern Baptist, you might be wondering, why does any of this matter? Why should I care? And if you are a Southern Baptist, you may be wondering, what should I be doing to raise my voice about these things? Here to answer that is the president of the Center for Baptist Leadership and a dear friend, William Wolfe. William, welcome to the Jesse Hughes Show.
Jesse, it's great to be on, man. Thanks for having me.
So I guess the first question is, if somebody's watching this who is a Southern Baptist but isn't tuned in, or is not a Southern Baptist and is wondering what all the fuss is about, they might be wondering, why should I care about any of this at all? What would you say to that?
Yeah, the Southern Baptist Convention, the SBC, is the largest Protestant denomination, if you want to use that word. Sometimes Southern Baptists don't use the word denomination to refer to themselves. Sometimes we just use the word convention, but it functions more or less as a denomination. So it's the largest Protestant denomination in the United States of America. There are about 40,000 or so Southern Baptist churches, about 13 million or so Southern Baptists in our country. And as we came out of the 20th century, where theological liberalism wrecked the mainline denominations, the Episcopal Church, the Methodist Church, and others like that, the PCUSA, the Southern Baptist Convention is the last one standing, really. They fought a huge fight in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s to beat back the liberals. It's truly unprecedented in recent American church history. And so it's this massive Christian organization in the United States of America, and the members are largely conservative. Sometimes people talk about evangelicals as the lone bulwark against madness, political madness in this country. And really, those are Southern Baptists. Of course, they're non-denominational folks too, but the heart and soul of what's left of American Protestantism is the Southern Baptist Convention. And so if you care about the future of this country, conservatism, an America that you know, love, and recognize, you should care about the future of the Southern Baptist Convention.
We love our lone bulwarks, don't we, folks?
That's right.
So a lot of people know that the Southern Baptist Convention operates in where the congregations themselves are kind of semi-autonomous, and the committee at the top makes decisions, but those decisions don't always necessarily, they might affect or might not affect how certain churches operate. Can you just explain briefly kind of how that system is set up for somebody that might not understand it?
Yeah, sure. So they're actually fully autonomous. So the Southern Baptist Convention is a convention of cooperating churches. And that is what makes it different from other denominations that have a hierarchical structure where the denomination potentially owns the building, the church building itself that you're meeting in. They set very strict doctrinal standards. The denomination itself appoints the ministers or priests or pastors at these different churches. Southern Baptist churches are congregational autonomous churches who then decide freely to cooperate with the Southern Baptist Convention for the purposes of sending missionaries, theological training. We have 6 seminaries, and our 6 seminaries are some of the largest seminaries in the United States of America, and planting churches. That's really the 3 main things we cooperate on: missions, church planting, theological education, and training of future pastors. But when those churches of their own free will choose to associate with the Southern Baptist Convention to get the benefits, to get access to the International Missions Board, seminary tuition discounts, they say that they are going to have a faith and practice that closely aligns with our confession of faith, the Baptist Faith and Message 2000. So it's not supposed to be a freelance club. Just any church anywhere doing anything can join the Southern Baptist Convention. You have to look at the Baptist Faith and Message, which contains, Orthodox Christian teaching on the Trinity, on the inerrancy of Scripture, then particularly Baptistic teaching on who should be baptized and things like that. You have to say you agree with it, and then you can join up.
All right. And I think one thing that's been in the news recently is the Southern Baptist Convention has its own policy arm, for lack of a better term. Some people might refer to it as a lobbying group, the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission. We've seen recently that Brent Leverwood, who was, I'm not sure if the correct title was president or executive director, but he was the head of that, recently stepped down. Can you kind of shed some light into who Leverwood is, why he stepped down, and what the ERLC is supposed to do versus what it was doing under his term?
Yeah, sure. So the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention, the ERLC, is one of a variety of different official entities that the Southern Baptist Convention has. We have the six seminaries, we have the International Missions Board, we have the North American Missions Board, we have Lifeway, which produces Christian resources, and we have the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, the ERLC, which is founded ostensibly to defend Southern Baptist interests in the public square, in the political arena, and also to equip Southern Baptist pastors and lay members to think through difficult ethical and moral and political issues of our day. So they're headquartered in Nashville, Tennessee, and in Washington, D.C. And they have a president, and that president leads that organization, is really, you could say, sort of the top political spokesperson for Southern Baptists, ethical, moral, political spokesperson. Our most recent president was a guy named Brent Leatherwood, and Leatherwood led the entity for the last 4 years. And his 4 years of leadership was marked by division, controversy, and contention within the life of the Southern Baptist Convention, following on the heels of his predecessor's tenure, somebody that people who listen to your show may know this name, Russell Moore, who was also divisive and contentious. Why? Well, both Moore and Leatherwood are fundamentally never Trumpers. And we're not saying that we need, a full MAGA hat wearing guy to run the ERLC, but the vast majority of Southern Baptists happily voted for President Trump in the last 3 election cycles. So to have a committed, constitutional, never Trumper running our top lobbying arm caused a lot of issues. And Brent Leatherwood's tenure in particularly was marked by things like signing a letter along with national pro-life organizations to work to kill a bill that would have provided equal protection for the unborn in Louisiana. And this was in direct contradiction to a resolution passed at a Southern Baptist Convention annual meeting just the year prior, this is 2021 and 2022, that said Southern Baptists support things like the abolition of abortion, equal protection under the law for the preborn. So he's out of step with us on major issues like ending abortion. He's also out of step with Southern Baptists on other major issues like Second Amendment rights, our right to bear arms, which shall not be infringed. After the terrible, horrific Covenant School shooting in Tennessee, where Leatherwood's children actually attended that school, they were unharmed, but still is a terrible event. Leatherwood used his official position as our political spokesperson to lobby for red flag laws in the state of Tennessee, which many people argue are unconstitutional. And I don't want to go too long here, so I'll mention one more, and then you can ask me for others because I could go all day on this. Sure. He continued to lead the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission in its partnership with the George Soros-funded immigration front group called the Evangelical Immigration Table. The Evangelical Immigration Table, or EIT, is part of the National Immigration Forum, which was an organization funded by George Soros, started by George Soros, to try to influence evangelical Christians on immigration policy in particular, to make them more supportive of open borders policy, increased refugee admissions, amnesty for illegal immigrants, and so on and so forth. Everything that President Trump has run against, won on, and opposes, and the vast majority of clear-thinking Christians oppose as well. Just recently, in the weeks before Leatherwood resigned, he signed on for the ERLC to a coalition letter led by the Evangelical Immigration Table in defense of Representative Maria Salazar's Dignity Act, so-called Dignity Act, which is just another mass amnesty by another name. So on things like abortion and Second Amendment rights and a reasonable, thoughtful, secure border and immigration policy, Leatherwood has been to the left of the vast majority of Southern Baptists. It's caused a lot of contention in our convention, in our denomination. And so many conservatives are happy to see that he's resigned.
You would think that we would have not only religious leaders at the ERLC, but also politicians that we elect who would actually do the things that we ask them to do instead of running around. What about this amnesty bill? What about gun control? These things sound nice. That's not what we want. That's not what we voted for. That's not I know my friends, the people I've spoken to in the convention, certainly you as well, the people that you know, and you have interacted probably with a lot more than I have. This is not what we want. But it leads to this question in my mind. We look back through history and we see some of the most prolific cultural fighters in American history in the last 40, 50 years being affiliated with the Southern Baptist Convention. The most notable I'm thinking of being Jerry Falwell, started the moral majority, helped get Ronald Reagan elected to office, was standing up against the cultural issues of his day, some of which are still around today, like homosexuality, abortion, these hot topic issues. How in the world did we get from the moral majority and Jerry Falwell in the 80s to someone leading a policy arm for the most conservative denomination in the country who, by all accounts, from what you're telling us, doesn't even sound like a conservative?
I mean, that is a great question, Jesse. And really what's happened is conservative evangelical Christians find themselves with political leaders who, outside of issues like pro-life and marriage, at best, are to the left of Bill Clinton on so many other issues, on immigration, on climate change, and so on Second Amendment rights and things like that. They're to the left of Bill Clinton. Well, one of the answers can be arguably found in Megan Basham's fantastic book, Shepherds for Sale. The political left, progressives, secular organizations, they saw the success of the moral majority, and they said, this isn't good. If this conservative Christian voting bloc continues to bolster the Republican Party the way that they are now, we'll never be able to take control again. And so instead of taking them head on, what a lot of these progressives cooked up was a plan to infiltrate and subvert conservative evangelical Christianity, really taking a page right out of the communist playbook from a couple decades earlier, where the communists infiltrated, they infiltrated the federal government, they infiltrated the Christian churches, they infiltrated the seminaries. And so people like George Soros and others, Pierre Omidyar and other progressive billionaires, started funding sort of incursions into conservative evangelicalism and trying to lead us away and fracture us on issues like climate change, immigration, and even on issues like marriage. They wanted us to tone down our defense of biblical marriage between a man and a woman, the only type of marriage there ever is. And really one of the biggest hooks, Jesse, over the last decade was racial issues, was wokeness. When BLM sort of hit the airways, that's when they saw an opportunity to shame us for our racist past and get us to sort of, prostrate ourselves before the altar of, white guilt and everything that came along with it. So it's been intentional. It's been a multi-year effort. And really because evangelical Christians in this current generation were asleep at the wheel in regards to the political plays being run on them.
It's insane to see. So you started, in the wake of some of all this controversy that's been going on, you started an organization called the Center for Baptist Leadership. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. The Center for Baptist Leadership, we're about 16 months old here. Our mission is to revitalize the Southern Baptist Convention for the 21st century. We aim to renew the Southern Baptist Convention, defend it from those who seek its destruction, which there are many people who want to see the Southern Baptist Convention either go liberal or go woke or go bankrupt or all three if possible, and to equip Baptists to be a better voice in the public square. And so really, if you've read Megan's book and you say, I think this is a problem, organizations like the Center for Baptist Leadership and American Reformer, which helped launch the Center for Baptist Leadership, we're trying to be a solution to that. We're trying to make sure that we stay theologically faithful to God's word in our theology and in our practice as Southern Baptist Convention churches, advocate for better governance of our Southern Baptist Convention entities, which are stewarding fundamentally tithe dollars from millions of Southern Baptists across this country. And then again, to really get Baptists, out of the pews and back into the public square. We've heard so many stats and anecdotes about how so few Christians actually vote. And Baptists are a big piece of that. If more Christians would vote, Democrats could never win again. But it's not just voting, it's also intellectual, theological, and philosophical leadership to be provided to the conservative movement in America. In many ways, Protestants have been supplanted by Roman Catholics in terms of the leadership of the conservative movement within the Republican Party in the United States of America. And I'm thankful for the conservative Catholics who do great work in that arena. But fundamentally, this was a Protestant country, and America is really a Protestant birthright, and Baptists play a big role in that. So we're trying to bring Baptists back into the public square while strengthening the Southern Baptist Convention.
Yeah, I love my Catholic brothers and sisters who are out there doing good work, but I think if it would feel like we've lost something a little bit if this country, in my opinion, became a Catholic country instead of remaining Protestant. But with all of that in mind, just moving forward a little bit, so we've seen there have been over the years multiple attempts, some by Tom Askell, a guy that you and I both respect, and others who have tried to either eliminate the ERLC through votes at the annual meeting or through different means. Obviously, they've gotten some sort of message now that we've seen that Leatherwood has resigned. So going forward, do you foresee a new president being put in charge who's actually going to lead the organization in a more conservative direction? Or do you think that they're going to try and find somebody who is maybe more non-controversial and would just kind of sit by while groups like yours hopefully do end up taking the lead if they do just sit by, and getting Southern Baptists to actually get up and get back to, as our friends at the Standing for Freedom say, put the protest back in Protestant?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, fundamentally, to change the Southern Baptist Convention in either direction, if you want to make it more liberal, you want to make it more conservative, you have to win the presidency of the Southern Baptist Convention quite a few years in a row, because it's through the presidency that you get a committee on committees, a committee on nominations. The nominations committee appoints trustees or offers trustees to the messengers to vote on to be approved to these boards that govern these entities, the seminaries, the ERLC, all of it. Tom Askell and other brothers have run for the presidency, but really we got our first conservative president in quite a while, and this guy, Clint Presley, a little over a year ago in 2024. So if you're thinking about changing the Southern Baptist Convention and changing the ERLC, year one was just last year. We've just started year two. So it's going to take a while. So Leatherwood actually suffered a huge defeat in a vote that we took at the Southern Baptist Convention annual meeting just a couple months ago in Dallas, where 43% of the messengers who were gathered there voted affirmatively to abolish the ERLC because it's been so divisive and out to lunch and out of step. Now, he technically survived the vote, 57-43, but it was a huge referendum, and I think that's part of what led to his resignation. So will we get a better president? That's what you're asking me, and I'm answering it by saying I'm not sure, because the board of trustees that allowed Russell Moore to do what he did, the board of trustees that allowed Brent Leatherwood to be doing what he was doing, hasn't fundamentally changed yet. They actually just announced today the search committee that was formed to pursue looking for a new president. I don't know those people personally, but it does not inspire confidence that it's some sort of rock-ribbed conservative search committee. And so I'd say at best here, Jesse, with this current board, we'll get somebody who will not be as controversial, not be as offensive to conservative Southern Baptists, but won't really be pushing hard to the right. At worst, we'll get Leatherwood 2.0, Russell Moore 3.0. And I don't think that's out of the question, quite frankly. That could still happen. We could get somebody who's just as bad as both of them back in this position, and we'll be back in the position we were in, voting to get rid of them in a couple of years here again. So still, as a Christian, I want to hope for the best, trust in God's sovereignty. And, we'll see, it's not that hard. I will close this little answer by saying this. It's not that hard to be a decent president of the ERLC. Get out of the evangelical immigration table. Stop pushing amnesty. Stop lobbying against bills of equal protection at the state level. Get your name off of that letter. Stop taking progressive money and focus on the main things that you've been created to do: advancing religious liberty, fighting for life, and helping Southern Baptist churches navigate these difficult political waters.
Absolutely. All right, we have a few more minutes left here, so just moving on a little broader, what are some of the issues that you're focusing on in the lead up to the next annual convention that Southern Baptists should be paying attention to, that people outside the convention should be paying attention to, and that you hope to see some movement or some traction on in the coming months?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is engagement. I'm actually looking at the issue of engagement. And by that, I mean, send your messengers to the annual meeting. Our last few annual meetings, less than 10% of all Southern Baptist churches have sent voting messengers to our annual meeting. So one church is out there making decisions for 9 others. We become a denomination without representation. So you need to come to the annual meeting. Second, other major issues continue to be this fight over whether or not Southern Baptist Convention will allow female pastors. Our statement of faith says that we don't. Not every denomination is a Southern Baptist Convention. There are people out there who support egalitarianism, support female pastors, that I can partner with on political things outside of the SBC. But in the SBC, we say that we think the Bible teaches only men can be pastors. So that's something we're still fighting on. Another one would be financial transparency. We don't have standard nonprofit industry standards, 990 level financial reporting for our entities. And we're trying to get that so people know fundamentally how their tithe dollars are being stewarded. And the last thing would be, it's going to be a so-called open election for the next president. Clint Presley is in the second year of his 2 consecutive terms here. And so who we pick next after Clint will really help shape the direction. Clint's been a great pause and sort of a reversal of the liberal drift, but we're going to be looking for the next president to be somebody who really wants to go pedal to the metal on fixing the issues in the Southern Baptist Convention. So come vote for financial transparency, vote to deal with egalitarianism, and vote for a great new conservative president after Clint.
Absolutely. Those are all super important. One little comment I've been thinking about. I know that at the last annual meeting, when the fight over female pastors got brought up, I believe it's Jeff York, or however you say his last name, stood up there and said something about, well, we consulted with our lawyers, and they think that we're opening ourselves up to unnecessary litigation if we pass something like this. I'm in law school. I'm not even a lawyer yet. I'm in law school. I have not even taken the bar yet. And I know enough about the law so far to know that as a religious denomination, holding to our own beliefs is constitutionally protected. Give me 15 minutes, I'll give you some case law on it. You need to fire whoever gave you that advice and get better lawyers. That one in particular kind of just drove me crazy. But William, where can people find you if they're interested in learning more about this stuff?
Thanks, Jesse. And you're absolutely right. And can you imagine Martin Luther saying, I can't defend God's word because the lawyers told me not to? Ridiculous. Follow us online on X at Baptist Leaders. Find us on Facebook, Center for Baptist Leadership. Please subscribe to our podcast, particularly on YouTube. We're trying to grow our reach there. YouTube, Center for Baptist Leadership, and check out our website at centerforbaptistleadership.org. If you haven't caught the theme, you can find us using the phrase Center for Baptist Leadership.
Thank you so much, William, for coming on.
Thanks, Jesse.